Okay, looking live at the White House, where any minute President Joe Biden will update his administration's response to Hurricane Milton. Once he begins speaking inside the White House, we'll bring that to you live right here on CBS News 24/7. But we want to show you something. Look at these new satellite images to our monitors. They show a before and after. Tropicana Field, St. Petersburg. The image on the left is the stadium before Milton, and then the one you're about to see, there it is. You see the roof mostly ripped off, just shredded there because of the wind. Meantime, cleanup in Florida amidst flooded neighborhoods and homes torn to pieces. We had an opportunity to talk to Governor Ron DeSantis in Bradenton Beach on the work to remove all of that debris just moments ago. Wanted to let you hear that.
Debris. We surged the state. You had debris after Helene. And, the way these debris contracts work, I know the cities have them, the counties, the contractors, whatever, but a lot of times the debris takes forever. Clearly, with another storm approaching, there was a lot of debris. So we paused a lot of our road projects with the Department of Transportation, and we did an emergency debris removal. And we were here in Manatee, the Berry Islands, Pinellas. We did like 50,000 cubic yards of debris in 72 hours. That was a 24/7 operation. Now, I have roads that have to be built that we're under. I've got a lot of jobs throughout the state that have to go on. So it was never the state's responsibility to do the debris in the first place. So you're going to have these contractors, the cities, the counties, to get working on it. We want to be helpful if we can to facilitate that. And Kevin is working with FEMA to maybe handle the debris in a way that's going to incentivize more rapid attention to debris. The norm in a major hurricane, debris takes sometimes a year to get picked up. I don't think that makes sense. I don't think that's good for recovery. I don't think the debris ended up being projectiles that caused much additional damage like we feared. Now, part of it is we did get a lot of the debris up that was there, but I still just think you gotta get the debris. So they're working on that with FEMA to be able to provide maybe some more attractive incentives in terms of how this stuff is reimbursed. But we understand that's going to be an issue, especially with local cities that may not have very big budgets. But, our emergency debris mission, while I have to use that stuff to do what their normal business is, I did do the executive order saying that debris should be 24/7. So you should have your debris sites open so that if private citizens are bringing debris, that they have a place to drop it off. That should be the expectation. We want to harness that to be able to get rid of this stuff as soon as possible. All right, I'm going to let Kevin say a few words.
Yeah, thank you, Governor. Another example of that leadership from the governor is Governor gave me the authority to actually direct permit debris management sites. So instead of having all the bureaucrats at our individual agencies, Sean Hamilton, DEP Secretary, and myself can go direct with each other. And I have the authority to permit any additional debris management sites in real time. So long as it's not near a well and it's not near some type of environmentally sensitive land like water and things of that nature. So we've cut that bureaucracy and red tape out, and that's the governor leading the way on that. We're going to continue to do that. We want to encourage, as the governor said in the executive order, we want to encourage people to be picking up debris 24/7. This is not a Monday through Friday garbage collection once a week type thing. It is a full court press, and we need to make sure that those things are happening. Another thing that the governor is doing, leading the way, you just heard him talk about the Port of Manatee. He has directed me to go ahead and get whatever it is for Transpontane to get back up and running. Right now, their first request is they have no place to work out of. So we're getting them a portable building or a mobile command unit for them to start working out of. If that's pumps or anything else they need to get them up temporarily until they can get their feet underneath them, we're going to do that. So that literally at the last stop that came up, we're already working it and already mobilizing assets to get there. So those are things that we're going to do. As the governor also said, we're working with FEMA to figure out how we can get number one, Deanne Criswell said, Kevin, we're going to work with you and make sure that all the emergency work you guys did last week gets covered. She 100% committed to that. The president on the phone with the governor, myself, and Deanne committed to that. So they're going to figure out how to work that out. Now, unfortunately, we don't have those emergency circumstances that exist anymore for us to come in there and really supplement that process. So FEMA is going to figure out, again, how can we incentivize more haulers to come here? When I say haulers, I actually mean the dump trucks and the hauling trucks, the subcontractors to get in here. How do we get more bandwidth? And then through the governor's executive order to go 24/7. This needs to be a 24/7 every day of the week operation, not taking any days off. So we'll do that. In addition to those things, I just want to reiterate, if you need help with housing, you need help with non-congregate sheltering, hoteling and stuff like that, we have submitted our disaster declaration request. I informed the governor about an hour ago that that has been done. So the expedited disaster declaration request has gone to FEMA. We anticipate that we'll be turning on TSA very quickly. I will say this, the president knew it was coming, the administrator knew it was coming, all of the staff in D.C. knew it was coming. So we're hoping there's going to be a quick turnaround time on that. We got it to them, like I said, about an hour ago, maybe an hour and a half ago. So I look for that declaration response to come probably today. FEMA knows that it's Florida, and we're used to moving Florida fast. So that's a little bit of an update since the last time we talked. I appreciate your leadership, Governor.
And so the TSA is the...
All right, listening in there from Bradenton Beach about the recovery efforts. You know, debris, the word of the day, and that means cleanup crews, especially in other parts of Florida. Fort Myers Beach, in fact, are working overtime. Our CBS partners also there to catch that part of the story, and we wanted to let you see what they found there.
Hoping for some good news from FPL today. That's where Wing News reporter Camila Pereira is, and she just spoke with the vice mayor recently. She joins us live from the beach. Camila, do you have an update for us?
Numerous updates, really. The biggest one, like you said, was from FPL. He spoke with them, and he says that hopefully today they'll have crews out fully running as they did their assessment yesterday. And by today, if they have those crews out fully working, they're hoping power might be coming back soon then. And not only that, but because they're having crews right now finishing up, collecting that sand, as you can see here, picking up that debris too, they're really hoping they can get the island back up and running for people to come and visit again, because as of now, residents only can come onto the island so far. Same thing for business owners is what we're seeing now recently. But again, look, they're picking up, grabbing everything that was really thrown out by that storm surge, by the flooding, by that water, by the wind and the rain, and just trying to get Times Square here in Fort Myers Beach back up and running. So a lot of movement, a lot of action, a lot of rebuilding and recovering back from Hurricane Milton and from Hurricane Helene. Remember, this all was also in the process of cleaning up still during Helene. And it's not just here on Times Square. It really stretches down Fort Myers Beach, the island here. So again, the biggest thing is they want to get everything back and running. And they're hoping that by tomorrow, if they can get all this sand from those piles there, put onto the corners there, mountains really of sand, they can have contractors come out here onto the island. And not only that too, but maybe in a day or two, hopefully have everyone come back onto the island. Again, that's the goal, to get Fort Myers Beach back up and running and ready to welcome everyone to enjoy the beach, the businesses to get people onto here, the residents to be able to have their homes back up, cleaned out, and power is the biggest thing, because we've been hearing those generators go off all morning long, really. So again, recovering, building back up, just 1 hour and 1 day at a time as each day goes by after now Hurricane Milton. For now, live on Fort Myers Beach, Camila Pereira, Wink News.
So our partners there with Wink, we appreciate them so much. And you know, you heard her talk about flooding. It's kind of strange to imagine it's still happening even though the skies are clear.
Yeah, even though the Milton is completely off the East Coast, they're not going to be impacted by that system anymore, but they're still flooding. And that's because all of the water that fell has nowhere to go besides back to the ocean. So the rivers, the levels are still rising, and they're likely going to continue to rise over the next about 24 hours until all of that water is able to make its way closer to the coast. So let's take a look at those warnings that are currently ongoing, because flood warnings and flood advisories all across the Florida Panhandle up into Georgia, South Carolina, even some parts of North Carolina, still dealing with flooding. Again, even though that system has very quickly departed. Let's take a look at that system over the past 18 hours. It quickly made its way over Florida, and now look at it. It is very quickly traversing over the Atlantic, closer to those warmer waters. In Florida, not all too much to talk about, besides maybe just a little bit of additional thunderstorm action today. It's not going to be hurricane-like. It's not going to be dropping nearly as much rainfall, but we would love it to be a lot quieter and a lot calmer. And unfortunately, it's not going to stay too much quieter over the next couple of days, but it is going to be a lot quieter than a hurricane impacting you. So let's take a look at, again, that system over the past 18 hours, continuing to quickly make its way further east. But we're also tracking another system. Its name is Leslie, that's currently making its way over the Atlantic as well. Leslie is going to be just a storm for the fishes, though. So if we look at the spaghetti plots for Leslie, it's heading up in a way, and it's not going to be impacting the United States at all. And you might notice there is a little bit of activity all the way to the down here. This is coming off of Africa as we are monitoring our next system that should be heading our way by the time that we step out over the next 7 days. But still, it's a very slow mover, and again, only about a 50% chance of it actually forming. It is not Nadine. I've seen a lot of reports on social media saying Nadine is on the way. It hasn't even formed, and if it does form, it will not be impacting us for at least 7 days from now or later. And again, it's a big if that system even forms. So luckily, not looking at any additional systems on the way for Florida, and no additional systems for the United States over the next 7 days. So that's really good news. Hopefully they can take the time to reset and hopefully just recover as much as they can, because that 1-2 punch from Helene and Milton was absolutely awful. But again, Nadine not on the way. They should have some time to clean up a bit.
Want to test my knowledge and my memory, because I worked in Miami in, where hurricanes are a big deal. Yeah. June through November hurricane season, are we still holding to that timeline?
To September 30th normally. However, October, we have seen many Category 5s forming in the past couple of years as ocean temperatures continue to warm, record-breaking ocean temperatures. That's going to continue to lead to hurricane chances. So we'll keep an eye on it, even though it's past the peak of hurricane season.
Okay, well, we watch because we've got to be on alert. Thank you so much. So we're going to go to the White House right now, where reporters are awaiting President Joe Biden to deliver remarks on hurricane recovery in Florida. Keep in mind right now, the President of the United States not only wanting to reassure the people in Florida and in the Carolinas and elsewhere that help is on the way and that federal support is on the way to help them recover from all of the damage, all of the destruction, but also another message, and that is to Congress, hoping that Congress can add to his push to get help and power to the people who definitely need it there in hurricane territory. We'll be talking about that coming up. We also understand that Vice President Kamala Harris will be joining virtually from where she is positioned in Arizona. She's trying to get the vote out in Arizona, and so we'll have a lot more to come when we come back. Watching our monitors right now in real time on CBS News 24/7 of the White House. We are waiting President Joe Biden to deliver remarks on hurricane recovery in Florida and elsewhere. As soon as he steps to the podium, we'll bring it to you. Now, video to our monitor shows the dogged search for survivors among rubble in Beirut after Israeli airstrikes killed 22 and injured more than 100 others. This is according to information from Lebanon's health ministry. The blasts that you see here and the rubble from those blasts were meant for a senior Hezbollah official as Israel vows to take out the Iran-backed terror group. And we caught up with Secretary of State Antony Blinken as he left Laos. He's there on some official business. Here's what he had to say about that conflict in Lebanon, expressing support for Israel's right to defend itself against terror group Hezbollah and their attacks.
When the horror of October 7th happened, the next day, Hezbollah joined in, trying to create another front. In the process, the rockets and other munitions that they were launching into northern Israel forced people to flee from their homes. And some 70,000 Israelis have had to leave their homes. Similarly, in southern Lebanon, because Israel responded to these attacks from Hezbollah, you have many people who had to leave their homes. This is well before the last few weeks. This is what happened over the last year. And we all have a strong interest in trying to help create an environment in which people can go back to their homes and live there safely and securely, and kids can go back to school. So Israel has a clear and very legitimate interest in doing that. The people of Lebanon want the same thing. We believe that the best way to get there is through a diplomatic understanding, one that we've been working on for some time and one that we're extremely focused on right now. Now, Israel has a right to defend itself against terror attacks coming from Hezbollah, from Hamas, from anyone else. But it's also vitally important that in doing that, they focus on making sure that civilians are protected and, again, are not being caught in a terrible crossfire.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken speaking there. All right, so let's go deeper and really expand the conversation. CBS News foreign correspondent Deborah Pata reports that local villages along the Lebanese border, they report they are repeatedly under fire. Watch.
2 strikes overnight deep in the heart of the capital, the deadliest attack since Israel began hitting central Beirut last month. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has threatened the devastation seen in Gaza on Lebanon if its people do not stand up to Iranian-backed Hezbollah militants. Israel is waging its offensive against Hezbollah along the border, now in Beirut and the Bekaa Valley. We visited the village of Hodor, where war came without warning. Local villagers told us that the area is repeatedly under fire and that they go to bed every night in fear. Just this week, 5 people were killed in a strike there, including a much-loved school teacher and his grandson. Over the past month, 23 people have died in more than 30 airstrikes in this village alone. Israel says it is targeting Hezbollah strongholds in this area, but the villagers of Hodor we spoke to say they have nothing to do with this fight. Reed?
All right, thank you, Deborah. Be safe there. Jumping the map to Cripple Creek, Colorado. Say that 3 times. This is outside of Colorado Springs, and there's a serious story here. The work to rescue 12 trapped tourists inside a mine. The tourists in an elevator traveling 500 feet below the earth in the Molly Kathleen gold mine, and that is when the elevator malfunctioned and stuck in place for 6 hours. Tragically, you see the ambulance leaving slowly. 1 visitor died. So far, no idea why that elevator got stuck. A new trial date set for the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students, a brutal case. Brian Koberger, in court in the white shirt right there, says he didn't do it. Prosecutors, though, vigorously disagree. They will make their case now in front of a jury beginning August of next year. 79 years since the bombings of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and a special group of survivors are now honored with the Nobel Peace Prize. That Nobel Committee working to honor their work against nuclear weaponry in our world. This group of survivors are from a Japanese organization that's a grassroots movement of atomic bomb survivors. Looking live at Boston right now, a cold snap, dropping temperatures all across the Northeast. They got to put on the parka. Zoe?
Yeah, and it's actually only going to get cooler into early next week, where 50s as a high temperature could return to the forecast. Sweater weather will be in full swing oh so very soon. Right now, we're definitely feeling that cool down across the Northeast. Look at that cooler air that's invaded, and it's definitely feeling nice and chilly early this morning. Now, compare that to what the central United States is feeling. All of that heat as another heat dome is building across the central United States, and then another heat dome that is just not budged across the desert Southwest, because the desert Southwest has easily felt their hottest summer on record. Phoenix has seen countless days in a row at or above 110 degrees. They're down to 105, but that is still extremely hot, and they're likely going to stay extremely hot throughout the weekend, maybe even breaking a couple of records for this time in the year. Again, that high heat dome continues to build across the central United States, bringing 90s all across of Texas, and likely going to be dealing with heat indices a bit higher than that because all of that warm air coming up from the Gulf. Again, the Northeast, though, this is where you're already feeling a bit more of that chill. Highs today, upper 60s to low 70s. A really gorgeous afternoon is ahead across the Northeast, and it's only going to get cooler again into early next week. So let's take a look at that bigger picture pattern, because the cool down, it is going to continue, especially again across the East Coast. So today you felt that cool down, and into this afternoon you will continue to feel those cooler conditions. By the time that we step out this weekend, there might be some nicer weather on the way late Saturday and into Sunday. But then look at that next storm system and look at that big blob of blue that'll be heading your way by the time that you step out Monday afternoon. That's the day that the real chill will begin, and those high temperatures Monday, like I said, going to be in the 50s and 60s. So sweater weather right around the corner. It is going to feel like fall oh so soon after a lot of heat, after one of the warmest Octobers or starts to October on record for many locations. Finally feeling that much needed cool down. Relief is on the way. Across the Northeast, it's going to feel very, very nice.
We'll take that. It's been a difficult week where the weather stories are concerned.
Oh, yeah.
When we come back, it's one thing to see images out of Florida and elsewhere from hurricane impact on the ground, but we're going to show you drone video that flies above what so many communities are now dealing with. At At the same time, water rescues happening in real time. More on Milton when we come back. All right, when we see it, you see it. New information coming in from the White House about hurricane recovery efforts. Minutes from now, President Joe Biden expected to give updates about cleanup efforts across the South and rescue efforts at that. CBS News White House reporter Willie J. Inman following that briefing. What do we expect to hear from President Biden?
Hey there, Reed. Good to be with you. Well, President Biden is expected to give an update moments from now. We anticipate we'll get those images out to you. The vice president is also going to participate virtually because she's traveling out west campaigning, but she's a part of these talks, of these conversations happening with the hurricane recovery. We anticipate the president will talk about his upcoming trip to the affected areas by Hurricane Milton. The White House announced that he's traveling on Sunday down to Florida to get a look at the devastation himself. But we have seen the White House come out and put out that information about the recovery efforts, what they're doing to help those communities in need in terms of helping them recover, getting the money that they need, some $344 million going to assistance to provide for those in hurricane relief. We also know that thousands of personnel have been dispatched, not just for search and recovery efforts, but also thousands of workers from across the country to help restore power to people as well. We know that millions have been without power after that storm passed through the state. And on top of this, there are some meals, some millions of meals. We have millions of liters of water, some 20 million meals and 40 million liters of water the president mentioned the other day, staged and ready to go to help people get the food and water that they need, because oftentimes a lot of folks, when they lose power, they lose those meals, they lose food, all of those things that they would need. But I want to also point out that the White House, the president in particular, has been forceful about pushing back against disinformation that somehow FEMA disaster funds are being redirected to support migrants. That is not happening here. The White House has doubled down, tripled down, in fact, with the president saying that that is not happening, and that's disinformation being spread by former President Donald Trump. Reed.
Yeah, and we've also heard the president cite some of those very specific things like control the weather, hitting back against what Marjorie Taylor Greene had to say, that FEMA is only going to give you $750 and then take your land. Both things, he said, are absolute lies. Willie, thank you so much for joining us on a Friday. Important news. And by the way, say hi to the little squirrel jumping on the White House lawn there behind you, bringing a little moment of lightness. We appreciate it. Good to see you, my friend. All right, when we come back, we're going to be talking more about what the focus is from the Biden administration on helping the people, those of you who are watching right now in the palm of your hands in those areas ravaged by Hurricane Milton. More when we come back. Eyes on the state of Florida in the wake of Hurricane Milton. Hundreds of water rescues playing out right now in real time. It's happening while also we depend on drone video that gives us a different view. It's sort of a bird's eye view of boats capsized, the force of that water, the force of that storm surge, even through some of those boats, not only onto the shore, but up into front yards, neighborhoods. We also have a tragic note. The death toll is up. This into our newsroom right now, 16 dead, while rescuers say the work continues. They are still plucking people out. Now the number 1,000 people pulled out of the devastation and counting. Speaking of numbers, we now know what destroyed homes and businesses aside from the hurricane, and that's the tornadoes that were sparked because of the hurricane. 20 tornadoes as we look at this shattered glass and now blue skies. At this hour, also, you see that hanging recessed light there. It wouldn't work even if it were not tore up. That's because electricity is out in those wires to more than 2 million people. And we need to show you this. It's video out of Palm Beach Gardens because it really demonstrates the power of those twisters. That's a massive dumpster sucked up in the force of the wind and then hurled onto a house. So if you think wind is not powerful, consider this. That dumpster weighs 2 tons. That's why they need a crane to get it off the roof of that house. And we now know more about the people who own that house. They are new owners. They had just inked the deal a week ago to buy the house. But amidst the loss, some perspective that's really instructive to all of us. The family who owns that house says they can rebuild. They're just thankful everybody in their new neighborhood survived. Zoe, it's times like these that we see the damage, we see the destruction, but we also see the best, our better angels there.
And a lot of people don't realize how powerful a hurricane is. This one was 300 miles wide and had about the force of 200 atomic bombs. So that is an extremely powerful hurricane, and luckily we are not dealing with it anymore. It has quickly made its way off the East Coast, and it is fizzling out as it does so. But you might notice there are still widespread flood alerts. Those little areas in green down in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, even North Carolina, those are all rivers that are flooding right now. And you might be wondering, why are they still flooding? It's not even raining anymore. Well, all of the rain has to go somewhere. So all of the rain that fell in the central parts of these states is now running down towards the ocean. So we still have a couple of hours left of these river levels increasing and cresting before they finally subside. So let's take a look at what we have seen over the past 18 hours. Again, that storm Milton very quickly fizzling out and quickly making its way over the Atlantic. As it does so, you'll notice Florida might see a couple of additional thunderstorms, especially down across the southern tip. But it's not going to do all too much and not nearly as much damage as Milton brought over the past 48 hours. We are only going to continue to see even more nice and quiet conditions. So that system making its way further east, and we'll continue to see that. Again, let's take a look at that 18-hour loop continuing to traverse. But you might notice there's even more cloud coverage. That's Leslie. Leslie is a tropical system, but it's a storm for the fishes. That storm system will continue to make its way further out towards the sea. If you look at that spaghetti plot, can't see all too much, but what you do see, it's not heading anywhere towards the United States. And you also notice that little line down by my foot. That is another system that we're monitoring, and likely over the next couple of days, it could potentially form into something. But it's not going to be impacting us for at least the next 7 days, if it even forms into anything, because I have unfortunately seen quite a lot of posts and misinformation on social media, Reed, that says Nadine is on the way to Florida. It's not. It hasn't even formed yet. It's likely not going to, at least for the next couple of days. It's still organizing along the coast of Africa. So no imminent threat to the United States when it comes to hurricane for the next 7 days. And that's really good news.
Fascinating seeing these emerging themes. We're getting a masterclass in response and recovery, but also in misinformation that's out there. That's why it's so important to stay tuned. Nadine?
Not a thing right now,
Nadine,
at least.
not a thing. Let's make the t-shirt. All right, so getting around in a hurricane zone is gridlock, and nobody can prove that better than my friend Tom Hansen right there. He's our CBS News correspondent. He is stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic. People who are on the road trying to make their way back to their homes. Tom, paint a picture for us.
Reed, you know, I'm happy to report that we are actually moving right now after being stuck in that bumper-to-bumper. We actually selected a route that popped up that took us off of that main highway because we are going to Pasco County, where we need to get there as soon as possible. There are water rescues underway there, but I want to paint a picture for what we saw earlier, which was bumper-to-bumper traffic. Very few times in life are you able to stand on a major highway like I was previously for live shots. Basically, cars were not moving. They were inching forward, and it was a painstaking journey on I-4, which is one of the main thoroughfares across the Floridian Peninsula. But I will say we are going to hit traffic yet again because our ETA keeps on getting pushed back. We were supposed to be on the Gulf Coast of Florida by noon, and we are looking at a 3:41 arrival now. So we're talking hours of delays because so many people are trying to get back to the Gulf Coast to see what the storm brought to their neighborhoods, to their communities, to their homes, potentially to see what's even left of some of their homes. So that is the residual situation. Now, one of the things that I want to say also, the storm has blown through, but there is still water that is rising in certain areas because of all of the runoff that the storm dumped in parts of Florida. The county we are going to, Pasco County, where the river has crested or is about to crest, that has been pushing people into dangerous flooding conditions. These are people who are waiting for rescues, and so we're going to meet up with some of the authorities there to see if we can get on a rescue boat and go document the life-saving work that they do. But right now, this is the part of the journey that people don't often see on TV. We are traversing the Floridian Peninsula, trying to get to our next location. That entails a lot of driving and a lot of patience. Reed?
A lot of patience because the roads have been so gummed up. We're glad you found that alternate route. That's probably going to be the story for so many people. We're glad to have that perspective, because as we look at that road right now, as you switch your camera around, you're seeing off to the right and off to the left just what it looks like there. So many thoughts and prayers for people. You are just living proof that all stories, storm stories, science stories, are people stories, and we're grateful you're there chasing them. Tom Hansen, we appreciate it so much. This might be a national broadcast, but as we just said, we believe that all stories are local stories. And that's why our team at CBS News 24/7 works very hard to do what Tom's doing by traversing the roads, connecting communities with an army of journalists who are out there literally beating the streets into your neighborhoods to tell your stories. That includes our reporters from WTSP in Tampa. Watch.
Gulfport hit really hard, was hit so tremendously hard by Helene with the boats out there, the flooding, and now Milton didn't do any favors for the area. Yesterday, Miranda, you were out there showing us all the tree debris that was out there. The cleanup seems endless right now, and I know they're hoping for some power as well.
That's right, Caitlin. I know we were exploring the neighborhoods a bit yesterday. Now we're here on the main strip where a lot of these businesses are still shuttered, rebuilding after this back-to-back storm session here. But I'm here with Mr. Gary and Mr. Terry, and they have been walking around. So tell me what you've seen as far as the devastation here in Gulfport.
Well, there's a dramatic difference between Helena and Milton. I walk the beach. My business has been in Gulfport for 30 years, and I live there now. So I was down here at 6:30 in the morning both times. There's a dramatic difference between Helena, which was a storm surge issue, and this was a wind issue. The beach is literally gone. The beach is missing. And so the difference is really dramatic here in Gulfport. I have no idea how long it will take to restore this, because I walk the beach twice a day, and it's not even believable to be on site versus watching it on TV or watching it on the internet.
And I know y'all said this has been so tough for people who live here who maybe don't have power. What have you heard from folks who live around here?
Well, I'm from Treasure Island and live in a condo. We were without power after Helene for about a week, but got restored. The bottom floor was flooded, but Treasure Island, the beaches, all the way from the barrier islands, and we have property over in Tampa on the Hillsborough River. So this is an expansive, storm, and back to back, like I said, one was surge, one was wind, and it was like a two-punch knockout.
That's right. I know, just like your family, so many people rebuilding, so many people hoping to get power. But I know here in Gulfport, folks are relying on each other. We've seen it on the Facebook pages, even sharing what restaurants are open so you can get a hot meal. So we'll be keeping an eye on that in Gulfport. Miranda Parnell, 10 Tampa Bay.
All right, our CBS partners there on the ground getting the stories. Let's go back to the White House. We are waiting for President Joe Biden to deliver remarks on his administration's response to hurricane recovery in Florida. As soon as that happens, we'll bring it to you. Economic news now. We're watching the latest producer price index. So if you don't know what that is, it's a measure of the average change in prices that domestic producers get for their products and services. The numbers show signs of inflation cooling just a bit. Wholesale prices showing no change in September from August. We're also watching Wall Street's reaction in real time as the markets react. Smarter eyes than mine belong to CBS News senior business and tech correspondent Jo-Ling Kent, joining us live. Jo-Ling, can this report bring confidence to consumers?
Look, I think that what we saw here is something that was very expected, even though it didn't quite hit economists' expectations overall. We do know this does not change the calculus when it comes to where inflation is going. What matters here is that the producer price index is often a bellwether, so to speak, of how much you might be paying down the line when it comes to the grocery store, products you're buying at your big box store, things like that. And so you pair this with what we learned yesterday, the consumer price index, that came in at 2.4%, and that rose slightly more than expected in September, but still a step down from August, which we really like to see. And so overall, this is a number that matters a lot, but it matters probably more to institutions like the Federal Reserve, which will be making those big decisions after the election when it comes to the interest rate, the benchmark interest rate.
All right, Jo-Ling Kent joining us live from Los Angeles. Thank you so much for that. We continue watching the White House for word about the Biden administration response not only to Hurricane Milton, but also Hurricane Helene.
You've been talking about that you're so worried about
the
misinformation that you've been
Yes.
talking about related to this hurricane and the recovery efforts. Do you think it's temporary, or do you think and worry that this might be a permanent state of being for this country?
I think it's a permanent state of being for some extreme people, but I don't think it's what the country's about. We're breaking through with it. We're breaking through with the truth. And if you notice, and I've really been proud, I've been on the phone and talking to a lot of Republican mayors and governors. They're standing up saying this is not Joe Biden, but conservative, hardcore Republican governors, hardcore Republican mayors standing up and saying it's got to stop. It's got to stop. And I believe there's nothing permanent about it. I'm pleased that more Americans are coming together in a truly voluntary way. I mean, this is who the hell we are. When America's in trouble, we all jump in and try to help. You help your neighbor. And that's basically what's happened. But the thing that bothers me the most is there's a lot of people who get caught in these crises who are basically alone. You know, widowers, people in hospitals, people who are by themselves, and they don't know, and they lose contact, and they just get scared to death. And anyway, so I think I think those who have been spreading these lies to try to undermine the opposition are going to pay a price for it.
Do you think Donald Trump is singularly to blame for all of this?
No, he's not singularly. I mean, he's just the biggest mouth.
Mr. President, have you spoken to Speaker Johnson?
No, I haven't. But I've spoken to Republicans who want to speak to Speaker Johnson, and I think Speaker Johnson is going to get the message that he's got to step up, particularly for small businesses.
Do you plan to meet with DeSantis in Florida?
I've spoken to him if he's available. Yeah, he's been very cooperative. We got on very, very well.
Mr. President, are you asking Israel to stop hitting UN peacekeepers?
Absolutely, positively.
Mr. President, will Mr. Trump's requesting his military aircraft in the final stages of the campaign?
I'm sorry?
Will you approve Mr. Trump's request to use military aircraft in the final stages of the campaign?
As long as you don't ask for F-15s.
Look,
I've told the department to give him every single thing he needs for as he were sitting president. Give all that he needs. If it fits within that category, that's fine. But if it doesn't, he shouldn't.
Thank you. This is now closed president. Please depart the Roosevelt room. Please depart the Roosevelt room to what you came in. Thank you, Brad.
So you're hearing there from the President of the United States. You're also getting to see what our world is like as journalists. When they close off that news conference and they say they're done, they mean they're done. Reporters continue pushing for answers, and that's what we do. So let's move on right now. Florida's Task Force 1 team, they have an army going neighborhood to neighborhood like the president talks about to help first responder agencies. That team, hard at work, deserving much praise and gratitude. They're out assessing the damage and then clearing out hurricane debris across communities directly impacted by Milton. Look at the mess it left behind. Like not even an inch of sidewalk untouched from all of the debris there. Florida Task Force 1 spokesperson Erica Benitez on how the team is there to help.
We're here to help the community who is already impacted by Hurricane Helene. And now with Hurricane Milton, there's a lot of debris still scattered throughout. And we're here to try to help the community to get them to go back to normal as quickly as possible. We're assisting local agency with any efforts that are needed and hopefully restore some sense of normalcy for the folks here in this community.
Families affected by Hurricanes Milton and Helene urgently need your support. In just a minute, we're going to be talking about how you can step in and do something. Listen, when we went to the president just a moment ago, we dipped in at a point where he was talking about the misinformation that continues to scare people in their homes there in Florida and elsewhere. But we wanted to also go back and let you hear what the president had to say at the top of his remarks, because it speaks to some of that direct response. We felt like it was important to roll the tape back and let you hear a little bit more. Listen.
Well, folks, Kamala and I have just received a briefing from senior leaders across our administration from Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. And to state the obvious, I'm sure you feel the same way. Our heart goes out to all those folks who've lost not only personal property, but their homes, and some lost lives. And grieving after the aftermath of the tornadoes, brutal winds, record downpours, and historic flooding. I must have spoken in the last 3 days to 50 to 75 members from North Carolina all the way down to Florida, talking to mayors and county executives. And anyway, it's amazing what's going on. And you know, this is the third major storm to hit California, Florida in 3 months. And experts estimate that, and it's early estimates, it could be more, could be less, but estimate that it's caused damages around $50 billion from Hurricane Milton alone. Just alone, $50 billion. I want everyone in the impacted areas to know we're going to do everything we can to help you pick back up the pieces and get back to where you were. We've been in constant contact, calling and reaching out to over 40 state and local officials, as I said, and we have to give them a little bit of hope. I mean, some of you have been through crises. You know, the one thing you wonder about when things are really bad is there hope? Is anybody coming? Is it going to happen? And that's what's happening right now. State and local officials are doing everything they can to help these folks recover. At my request, the primary focus of today's briefing has been on the power restoration and debris removal because they're urgent needs. Milton 50,000 power line workers from 43 states and the country and Canada have stepped up and come down to help and to restore. They've already restored power to 1 million people so far. And by the way, if you ever watch these guys and women climb these poles in the middle of nowhere, this is, anyway, they're risking it while they're doing this work. And we just spoke to the CEOs of the public and private electric utilities to thank them for surging their restoration crews to people who urgently need power, even in the communities they don't serve. That's one of the points. A lot of these folks are going into communities they don't serve at all. They're just volunteering. And the energy sector is real. And by the way, our Secretary Jennifer Granholm of Energy she calls it a mini NATO, a commitment, mutual assistance, and another shining example. Americans literally, when push comes to shove, they stand up and take care of one another. We're going to continue to prioritize this effort until everyone is reconnected and back online. We've been able to get this work done quicker because of critical infrastructure investments we've made. But when I was vice president, both when I was vice president and since I've been president, to harden the grid, grid you all know, but the grid meaning for your listeners, the electric power grid that transmits power. Harden the grid by incorporating innovative technologies like burying transmission lines underground, replacing wood power poles with concrete power poles that don't snap in the wind. To reduce the impact of extreme weather and climate change, we have to continue making these investments. We were just talking about it with the utility companies and with our team here and with the secretary. You know, over the years, the past several years, Florida has taken the money back when I got when we were vice president, to invest in putting these lines underground. It costs a hell of a lot more to put the lines underground than it does up in the air, but up to 6 times more or 7 times more. But it makes sense, and anybody who says we don't want to spend the money, Think of the 3 storms. After every damn storm, you wipe out the power grid, you got to rebuild it. And so if you can keep it so it's not wiped out, it makes long-term savings. And the other thing, the big deal, is debris removal. FEMA and the Corps of Engineers and the Florida National Guard are now on the ground helping the state clear debris to reopen roads and critical ports as well. I mean, so you've seen the pictures, so some of you have been there. You see, for example, in North Carolina, where half a mountain comes down and a bridge rolls in the water, and you got piles. I mean, you see at the end of a river or in a cul-de-sac. I mean, piles that are 3, 4, 5 feet high with all kinds of debris in there. It's going to take a lot of time and money to remove it. But the Army Corps and the Florida National Guard in Florida are on the ground helping clear this debris and reopen the roads. And so they have to do it for other reasons, to make critical deliveries of food, water, and tarps and life-saving supplies. The Coast Guard is leading the effort to reopen the port of Tampa, which you all know, because everybody's been covering it, and you've done a good job of doing it. Covering it because it's a port that delivers a lot of fuel that goes into the region and goods that are necessary. It's critical for the economy of the region. And again, let me say that the misinformation out there is not only just disgusting, but it's dangerous. It's misleading. And again, the first thing it does, and I mean it sincerely, I don't know, a lot of you have been through these crises, some of you personally, but people desperately want hope. Tell me it's going to be okay. Tell me it's going to be okay. And they're in real trouble, a lot of them. And to hear this malarkey you're hearing from some of the people, I want to get into it, but I lose my temper. But anyway, the truth is we're providing all the resources that are needed. Let me close with this. I want to thank you again to our brave first responders, power line workers, state and local officials, neighbors helping neighbors, and so many more. Look, it's a team effort. I know it sounds corny, but it really is a team effort. Everybody in the game here. And we're looking at it very seriously, and we're working together. And it's made a big difference. I think we've saved lives, not me, but we, all of those folks out in the field, have saved lives. But there's more to do, and we're going to do everything in my power to get it done. And the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, well, we're going to have to, I know I'm going to go to the vice president in a second. She's my boss here.
That's a tricky song.
We're going to be, hang on a second, Madam Vice President.
Sure.
We're going to be going to the Congress. We're going to need a lot of help. We're going to need a lot more money. As we identify specifically how much is needed. So I'm just telling everybody
As
now.
we listen to President Joe Biden talking about response to the hurricane, we are mindful that so many people are watching right there in the path of Milton, wondering when is help coming. The president saying it's on its way and boots on the ground. That's it for CBS News 24/7. Thank you so much for watching.